In his report, Kenya's Auditor General said that the country's procurement system is broken. He even calls the system captured by the people who are very knowledgeable. They knock on the doors and create a budget that the so-called tenderpreneurs identify opportunities to get money from the state in exchange for unnecessary, shoddy, or even absent goods and services. The story of Arror and Kimwarer has often been packaged as a political whirlwind, pitting politicians against rivals. Further, journalists have tended to report the story much like the proverbial blind men of Hindustan, each accurately describing a part of the elephant's anatomy, but unable to grasp the entire animal. Whatever perspective it is looked at though, one thing is clear. It is a scam, a financial crime of elephant proportions. It is to be expected that even after this case is forgotten, another scam will crop up. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you. If you are new here, welcome. We discuss financial crimes perpetrated by economic gangsters. Please subscribe for more content like this and feel free to share your feelings about these injustices. To have a dam or not, either way, you are damned. Dams have become an integral part in the economic progress of a country. These capital-intensive engineering infrastructures contribute immensely to the energy and food sectors. They generate electricity and help in irrigation. In the 1960s, Egypt undertook Africa's most ambitious dam construction when they built the Aswan High Dam under the legendary Gamal Abdel Nasser. The Aswan High Dam brought the Nile's devastating floods to an end and reclaimed more than 100,000 acres of desert land for cultivation. It made additional crops possible on more than 800,000 acres of land. The dam's 12 giant turbines produce as much as 10 billion kilowatt hours every year, providing a boost to the Egyptian economy and introducing modern life into the many villages. That was the standard that Egypt set for Africa, and it was assumed that African leaders would follow suit. Some did, many didn't. The closest that the Aswan Dam has been replicated in Africa is by the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, whose construction started in 2011. It is currently the largest dam in Africa and has made Ethiopia's economy grow by leaps by producing over 5 gigawatts of electricity. Kenya, on the other hand, was not left behind. Kamburu Dam was the first to be built in 1974, and other dams followed. It is then that politicians and parastatal heads discovered that dams, being massive projects worth billions of shillings, were the perfect avenues for corruption. One of the most documented cases involving a Kenyan parastatal and dams is that of Kenya Power and Lighting Company and its former managing director. It is documented that the former MD of KPLC would commission fictitious feasibility studies for dams for hydropower generation and make kickbacks off of the farms who got the tenders. In 1990, Kenya received 8.2 billion shillings for the Ewasongiro hydropower plant. The money was misappropriated, with the MD pocketing 1.8 billion shillings, and the dam took decades to complete. Between 1991 and 1993, one study showed KPLC conducted 14 feasibility studies, each costing 300 million shillings, which was 5 times what a feasibility study should cost. Dams were lucrative. From the Ewasongiro Dam to the Chakwal Dam to Itare Dam, and now the Arror and Kimwarer dams, or should we say the dams that never became. This is a story of financial crimes. Dams Edition. Kerio Valley is situated in a narrow, long strip that is approximately 80 kilometers by 10 kilometers wide at its broadest. It is 1,200 meters deep. It has a dramatic scenery, daring slopes covered in green husky primitive trees holding the ancient rocks in place, and all bird species chirping away joyfully. There is a wild basil growing freely on the clumpy, mossy mattress on the floor. The simpering weeds carry a fragrance with it, a whiff of mint. On the valley floor, several rivers traverse the slopy terrains. River Turkwell, Kimwarer River, and the Arror rivers. Rivers Kerio, Ketpobrok, Cheplogoi, Ojo, and Lelabey all flow into a seasonal lake called Kamnarok. The heaven-licking light adds a golden tint to the face of that lake. The floor is also rich in fluoride for mining and timber for harvesting. It was with these abundance of resources that the Kerio Valley Development Authority, KVDA, was formed as a regional development authority in Kenya, established by an act of parliament with a mandate to initiate, plan, and develop resources along the Kerio Valley. This mandate, plus opportunistic politicians from the Kerio Valley area, would contribute to two of the biggest dam scandals in Kenya. In 1986, the once powerful cabinet minister, Nicholas Biwott, together with KVDA, single-sourced a French company to undertake the construction of Turkwell Dam. The red flags for corruption were flying at full mast. There was no tendering process, there was no feasibility study conducted, and the financing was arranged so that the scammers could get the money directly. Turkwell was to be financed using commercial loans, a very convenient purpose-built vehicle for kickbacks and blackmail. Biwott, using KVDA and the French contractors, inflated the price of the dam from 4 billion shillings to 20 billion. By the time the dam was completed in 1991, Biwott and other politicians had laundered over 10 billion shillings via a local bank that they had formed, the collapsed Trade Bank. The only positive from that is that at least the dam was constructed. 26 years later, in 2017, the same script was repeated, but by a different cast. KVDA and the former Cabinet Secretary for Treasury repeated the scheme, play for play. It was like a rendition of an older version. They were from the same area. They would single source a contractor and financing would be by a commercial loan. While Biwott and KVDA used the French contractors and French financing for the Turkwell Dam, the Arror and Kimwarer looters went the Italian route. For a heist to be successful, the conspirators have to be on the same page. Where billions of shillings are involved, one doesn't have to look far to get a willing conspirator. See, the Italians were not new to Kenya. They knew how the system worked and were not afraid to front their companies for the dirty transactions. Several Italian companies were involved, but the main company is CMC di Ravenna, Cooperative Muratoi Cementisti di Ravenna. This company had a deal with a Kenyan wheeler dealer. In Italy, an article investigating the Kenyan dam scandal in La Verità, a right-wing newspaper, discovered a contract signed in 2013 between CMC di Ravenna and Stanshall Limited, a company associated with the then Lamu West MP, Stanley Mudhama. It was a consultancy contract granting Mudhama a fixed fee of 3% in case CMC signed a contract with local development authorities in Kenya. He was able to wheel his way through and connected CMC di Ravenna with the contract for the Itare Dam back in 2014. The Itare Dam project was awarded to CMC di Ravenna and was expected to take 4 years. It was projected to benefit close to 1 million people in Nakuru, Kuresoi, Molo, and Rongai. But the construction stalled for years after the main contractor, CMC de Ravenna filed for bankruptcy on 4th December 2018, despite the fact that about 19 billion shillings had already been paid by the Kenyan government, but with nothing to show for the money. The project, whose construction began in April 2017, was another scam and faced challenges ranging from compensation, flawed procurement processes, besides being marred in a number of court cases. In 2019, Mr. Muthama was arrested by the DCI and charged with 13 counts of tax fraud of close to £500 million shillings. His company, Stanshaw Company Limited, was allegedly contracted by Athi Water Services Board and the Lake Victoria South Water Services Board for construction of sewerage and water treatment plant, as well as CMC de Ravenna for the construction of Itare water dam. His company had evaded taxes. According to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution Analysis on 25th November 2015, a Stanley Muthama, identified as a staff CMC Kenya office, participated in high-level clarification meeting with KVDA officials regarding the tender for the Arror Dam, one of the decisive meetings for the award of the contract. Now that CMC de Ravenna had a stronghold of Kenya and the Kenyan politicians, it was easy for KVDA and the Treasury to get the Arror and Kimwarer Dam going. This was despite the fact that the Italian company had been declared bankrupt. The plan was simple. KVDA entered into a commercial loan facility agreement with CMC de Ravenna, disguising it as a government-to-government loan guaranteed by the Italian government. The contracting model selected was engineering, procurement, construction, and financing, where the contractor was to arrange for financing using financing institutions. In essence, the concessional financing contract would be an arrangement where the Kenyan government only paid the sum once the dams were delivered, with the contractor and financiers assuming all the risk. But instead, this was a commercial loan with high interest rates and meant to be recovered from the Kenyan government irrespective of whether the dams were constructed or not. The first contract was for Arror Dam. Arror Dam was to be built in Marakwet West constituency between Hossein and Kipsaiya, two ridges facing each other and that share a border on the valley floor. But KVDA added another contract for Kimwarer Dam. This is despite the fact that unlike the Arror Dam, the Kimwarer Dam had not been approved by the cabinet as required by the 2013 Public-Private Partnership Act (PPL). There was total disregard for the law, further establishing the fact that from the word go, there was no intention to build the dams. Kimwarer Dam was to be built in Kimwarer, located in Keio South constituency, 60 kilometers from Eldoret town on the Eldama Ravine Road. The Italian company was able to approach a financial, Servizi Assicurativi del Commercio Estero, SACE, to provide insurance cover and financial support. SACE worked with a consortium of 4 banks to suppose to finance the project's total cost of 63 billion shillings. But there were conditions precedent, which were payments apparently required before the funds could be released to the government and to the contractor. In other words, the conditions for the loan from SACE required some payments to be done by the government first. This is the heart of the scam. Don't blink, or you'll miss it. The government was to pay 951 million shillings in fees and commissions, 11.4 billion shillings in credit insurance to cover lenders for both dams, and another 9 billion shillings, or 15% of the total contract sum, for both dams to be paid out to the contractor. In total, the Treasury paid out 23 billion shillings as a precondition for financing and advance payment. The money went directly to CMC de Ravenna's account. After that, There were no mentions of SACE since it was just a setup by CMC de Ravenna to get the funds. The cases at Milimani Anti-Corruption Court concludes that payments made by the government of Kenya were made with the intention to siphon money from the country in the disguise of advance payment, insurance premium, and commitment fees. Now that the money had left the treasury, it was time for CMC de Ravenna to get its cut and distribute the rest to the co-conspirators. The looters used a clever way to get their cut. They formed shell companies that were registered at the CMC de Ravenna as subcontractors. These fake subcontractors were supposed to supply material and equipment for mobilization so that work for the dams would start. But none supplied the excavators or bulldozers for groundbreaking. None supplied equipment for site office. None supplied reflectors and helmets for staff at the site. Instead, the DCI unearthed 107 companies that were suspected to have benefited from the tenders that had little to do with the actual construction of the dam. The companies supplied food and wine worth 15 million shillings, bed sheets and air tickets worth 13 million shillings, duvets, towels and pillows worth 4 million shillings. Obviously, they were supplying to their own businesses. Long Rock Engineering Limited was named as one of the companies that allegedly received part of the money for the dams. The company was paid 6.2 million shillings to supply furniture and provide transport services. Long Rock is from the name Kaplongorok, a family name that hails from Kipsait and Kapsawal. There are 5 companies with Long Rock in their names that were suppliers for the construction of the dams, all of whose directors or shareholders are directly linked to the KVDA and more specifically to a board member. As the looters fattened their purses, the people of Kerio Valley were left hanging to dry. The promise of land compensation, the promise of jobs, and the prospect of a better economy all went up in smoke, or more specifically to private bank accounts. Until the next episode, keep watching.